Good evening and welcome to this YouTube video about editing videos. We are going to be using Adobe Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve on this here little tutorial. And should I just do the whole video as a flight captain? No, we shouldn't. However, I would like to say welcome. This is a little bit of a different video, not really a tutorial, more of a comparison. And if you don't know who the hell I am and you don't know, you just went to your favorite internet search engine and you binged up how to edit videos for free, and this showed up, well, welcome. I'd have to say, first of all, maybe you should work on your attitude a little bit. Second of all, your concerns are valid and understandable. I am a YouTube editor, video editor for online content. Call it what you will. I edit for Jacksepticeye and myself. And if you need some example of my work to validate my claims, here is an example of my work to validate my claims. That was an example of my work. I hope my claims are validated. I've been using Premiere Pro to edit for the past 4 years or so. And currently I have Premiere 2020 open here, which is a sad sight for sore eyes, mainly because it barely works. I'm personally still using Adobe 2018 to edit all my videos for Sean for YouTube. And the reason for that is not because I am a cranky old man who doesn't want change in his life, but mainly because Adobe 2020 just does not work for me, and I don't know why. I've reinstalled Adobe, I've reinstalled Windows on my computer, I've bought a new computer, and I just cannot get it to work. However, for the purpose of this comparison, we will use the latest version of either software. If you are looking for something to edit videos with, and maybe you don't want to, pay a bunch of money to Adobe every single month or year because you don't think that programs should be a rental service, which I would be inclined to agree with, or maybe you've just spent all your money on Kudos and Fall Guys, and you need to edit that sick, sweet compilation of all of the hilarious and unique failures on the seesaw level. Maybe you want to do that. Let's say that as a hypothetical scenario. Now, Premiere does cost money. You can do a 30-day trial for free, but I mean, editing one video is going to take more than 30 days anyway. Now, you might be familiar with a little program called iMovie. I've never used it. I mean, it's a Mac thing. I have a real computer, so I don't know how it works. I'm sure it's great. There's also Final Cut, which I'm sure is greater, because I have actually seen that and used, and it seems competent enough. But I'm pretty sure it also costs money. However, now there is something called DaVinci Resolve. I'm pretty sure that DaVinci Resolve has been around for quite some time, based on the fact that they are currently in version 16, so I assume there's at least 13 other versions before that. Sort of every time new articles have been popping up about DaVinci, I've been popping into it, and I've messed around a little bit and clicked a couple of buttons, and I never really loved it, so I never really stuck with it. So this is not going to be a tutorial on either Premiere or DaVinci. It's literally just going to be a comparison in my experience and how I use them. So don't really adhere to this too strongly. This is purely a recommendation, I suppose, if you are looking for something to edit your videos with. I'm by no means an expert at this stuff. I barely know DaVinci, and I guess to slightly toot some sort of horn, I guess I have above average knowledge of Premiere Pro. But let's just take a look at them, shall we? Now, this is completely off the cuff. Scripting is for professionals. But here you have Premiere Pro as you'd open it up to the editing tab. Now, I personally have a little bit of a different layout when it comes to the windows and tools I use. So I have it saved over here in the little toolbar. Hotbar? Hotline? Sex line? Let's click me. Now this is what I usually do. So let's import my clips. These are just some random, well, literally clips from Twitch. So I'll drop my first clip into the timeline. It'll create a timeline for me. We can name it main so that we know that this is our, well, main timeline. If I want to select different parts of a clip or I want to just extract the audio, I can double click it. It'll open it in the source viewer. And here I can see the clip. I can like select a range of it. I can get just the audio if I like, or I can get just the video if I like. All this good stuff. But let's not do that. Let's reset this and we'll just select all of our clips and drag them into our timeline. So they just snap to the end. And this is usually what I would do. If I had another mic track, I would put it down here, obviously, and a webcam track up here or a face cam track. But for these purposes, let's just go with this. Now, if I hold down Alt, I can scroll here. I can expand the audio track. So the way I would normally edit this, right, is I would have my main track mixer up here, which will lower the volume of an entire track. So if I lower this volume here for track 1, it would lower all of the volume for all of the tracks in track 1. As opposed to over here, where if I would to lower the volume here, you can see that it lowers just this clip that I am currently on. And you can see that by this line in the middle that sort of shows the general volume of each clip. So the way I would normally edit is I would drop everything in, I would make sure that it's all lined up and synced up, and then I would start cutting with C, or this razor blade tool here. So holding down Shift, you can cut through all of the tracks, and usually I would probably separate them out so that I don't have to select both audio and video together like this, which you can do by selecting all of it, Control A, or just the one clip. And you could either right click and go unlink, or you can just do Control L on your keyboard. If you are like me, using a keyboard with multiple buttons, and you feel like setting that up yourself, you can go to keyboard shortcuts and mess around to your heart's content. I usually have hold frame on number 3, because I use that sometimes. Anyway, that's what I would do, and then I would cut the video here. I would maybe select this part. Well, in the old days, I would select this part, I would hit delete, and then I would click this, and I would hit delete again to move everything back. However, Adobe has this really neat feature where now you can just hit W, and it will do exactly the same. It'll make a cut and move everything ahead of it back to your playhead. Similarly, if you're in front of a cut, or at this time it's just the start of the clip, and I put Q instead, it would do the same but back to that cut. So W goes forward and Q goes backwards. What's amazing about this, and I've mentioned this before as well, is that if you have a cut with a transition, it will retain your transition when you do this. So I can hold down Alt and scroll in and out to zoom on this timeline. If I don't hold Alt, I can just scroll to, well, scrub through. But if I now hit W, it'll retain that transition, which is so useful if you have a bunch of custom transitions, or you've used like Red Giant Universe for custom setups or whatever, or you have presets that you've made yourself. All of that stuff, it will retain. But anyway, so I'll go through, I'll edit the video, I'll do a bunch of cuts, and I'll add a bunch of transitions. Maybe I'll add a transition here, and then I'll do a cut, and blah, 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 etc. I've even I've got some saved presets here, like in this case where it's my own cam, which is in the bottom corner. I have this cam zoom bottom left, which I can just drag and drop on. And now I had this preset effect here that just zooms in and zooms back out. So if I want to place that maybe here, where I do a little funny little phase, I can just drag that there, and then I can time the outro of that to here, maybe like so. Is that funny? That is very funny. And if I want to zoom in more, I can just edit these keyframes, right? It's currently 153, maybe I want to go 253, and then back to 250 so that we get a little funny bounce. Similarly, 250 out here, and then the next one will be again 253. That way it would bounce up and bounce down, and you'd get this sweet motion blur as well. These are very, very useful things that I use a lot. I have this cam out, cam in, so that I can just drag that on, and it would zoom out or in the clip based on which side I want it to zoom out or in from. And you can even save these to attach to the start of the clip or the end of the clip. Like if I were to save this as a new preset, I can choose to anchor it to the endpoint, which obviously if I want the cam to fly in, I want it to do that at the start of the clip. Similarly, if I want it to fly out, I want it to do that at the end of the clip. Alternatively, if I just want a slow zoom over the entirety of a clip, I can set it to scale, which means that it would put the start keyframe and the end keyframe at, well, at the scale appropriate to the clip. So I'll do a lot of those presets myself. I'll finish editing the video down and I'll do whatever. And then it's probably time to export it, which is where I would just hit Control-M on my keyboard. And I can export it. What? This is the same as going up to File and Export and Media. If you have multiple clips or videos or whatever that you want to export, you can't really do that from within Premiere. You'd have to queue it up, which will open up your Adobe Media Encoder. Wowee! So this is essentially a separate program that does come with Premiere. Fortunately, they aren't charging another fee for this, but you do the similar thing in here. You just set it to your profile. This is just a custom one that I've made based on the YouTube profile in Premiere that is set to 1080p 60 FPS at a constant bitrate of 20. This is what I would do for all of my videos. And then I can hit OK and it will queue that up. And I can do that with as many videos as I want to, as long as they're saved as different projects. Essentially, this imports the project and then renders your timeline, or if you have multiple timelines, you'll get multiple options here. So it's good for queuing up, and you can also pause the rendering process, which is great. So that's basically the process of Premiere. Now, comparing that to DaVinci, which would open up much like so, this is completely free, as opposed to Premiere, which will cost you a bunch of money every month or every year, depending on how you choose to enslave yourself. Now, it is a little confusing and it is a little weird to work with if you are used to Premiere, or at least I found it to be, but it's also a relatively low hump to get over. So you have a bunch of tabs down here, and I don't really know what you would need some of them for, but let's say that you start in this cut one, which is where the program just opened up as a default layout, right? We'll do the same thing. I'll drag the clips into my media pool right there. I'd say, yes, change it. Please change the project to match my clips. Now I can drag them into here, which is my cut. And this isn't your timeline necessarily for editing. This is just your cut. So you can keep dragging your clips into this cut and it would just snap them back to back to back. And this is just all of your clips, right? So at first I was really confused. Like, why is it all the way down here? And how do I see the audio track properly? Can I move this up? This is weird. I don't like this. However, this is just, I don't know, for your cut, to check your cut. Let's click the edit button. Ah, now this is familiar. All right, so this is it's not what you would start out with. This is my setup, but now you can see that, you have the clips here, you have the audio tracks and the video tracks, you can drag them all around, really, really niftily like. If you just start out with this, you'd have the default workspace, which is here. So it would look like this, and this would be your source monitor. Remember the little thing where you can click a clip to see it separately from your whole sort of edit here, if you want to do things. And you have your effects library up here with weird transitions placed here. I didn't like this, so after some finagling with these little buttons on the sides, there's a button up here that folds that one up and down for some reason. And there's a button down here that does the tools, and you can fold that in and out, and it's a little weird to get used to, but just click random things and it'll probably work out, because that's what I did. I also saved my preset so I can just load it. And bada bing bada boom, we're back to what I like. I like a very long timeline because, well, that's where I do most of my stuff anyway. The effects are now up here. You can see there's the blur, there's the default stuff. As in Premiere, you can right click and add a transition. I really like this option where you have several options for the length of the transition. Now you can scroll, but nothing happens. How do you move across the timeline if you want to go ahead? I actually like this better. You hold down the middle mouse button, you click the mouse wheel in, and then you can just anywhere you have your mouse on the timeline, it becomes your anchor, so you just drag the mouse around. I really like this because you can just easily do this, and like it's very easy to hone in on separate little sections. So already that part is pretty great. Now, I've personally changed the timeline around. You have this option here for the timeline view. You can have it with, I don't know, this little bar up here. What is that? It's if you have multiple timelines, I suppose. I don't really do that. You can have no waveforms or yes waveforms. You can have these clips just showing the start and the end thumbnail, or you can collapse them all together. You can have the thickness of the audio tracks be a little bit bigger, and then you can add in the waveforms back in again with these little buttons up here. So you can even have it like slapped all the way down to the bottom like that, if you just prefer the one waveform, or you can have it centered, or you can have it's centered with the name separate, or you can have the name crossing over the waveform. There's a lot of options here, and I really like that. You can customize the timeline to look the way you want it to. So cutting this works a little bit differently from Premiere. Like if I were to go to this end of this clip, the cutting tool is up here. It's the blade edit mode. And that's the thing that I found that works similarly to cutting in Premiere. You can see that I get this little tool, and if I click, it'll cut. And if I click, it'll cut. Now, instead of holding down Shift to cut through all of the layers at once, I would hold down Alt, and it would cut through all of the layers at once. I don't know why this doesn't have a hotkey when you default into DaVinci Resolve, so I've set it up to be my own little nifty hotkey under keyboard customization. I've set up a couple of hotkeys here. Similarly to Premiere, I had the freeze frame on 3, I have copy and paste attributes, and a bunch of other stuff that I enjoy. Now, Q and W, I've set to be trim end and trim start, because that's the way it works in Premiere. And I love that you can do that. The only problem is, if I were to hit Q, well, my expectancies here would be that this cut would be moved to here and everything would be moved back, right? Remember? Well, if I hit Q, it does that, but it doesn't move it back. And I don't know if I have to turn on some sort of magical ripple edit or what. I can still just hit delete, select it and hit delete, but I would have to do it per track, right? Anyway, I usually do this instead, right? So we have this option here. I'll cut this, and then if I select this and now hit delete, it will do that. It'll delete it and move everything back. So it's a little bit of a different way of working with it. Rather than hitting the Q and W and just going through it, I would actually have to hit C, hold down Alt, cut it, select that part and delete it. It's fine, it's just a little slower and weirder, and also, obviously, it wouldn't retain the transition. If I had a transition here, and I would delete this, then the transition would go away as well. However, I do really like that if you hold your mouse over a cut, you can move the cut around. So if you want the cut to happen a little bit later for the audio track, you can just do that. You don't have to drag the clips individually like you would in Premiere. You'd have to drag that one and then select that one and drag that one. You can just hover over the cut and just drag both of them. I like that. So basic editing here is much the same, really. The only thing that I haven't found a alternative to, I suppose, and I've Googled about this for a while as well, and it seems you cannot save your transformation effects. So remember how I had that zoom in on the bottom corner that I can just drag and drop on? It seems as though you can't do that here. So if I were to cut this video track, you know, let's just for visual purposes, let's open those up so you can see a little bit better what's going on. We have this video track, right? Okay, so I'll add a keyframe for the zoom. Let's say I want to zoom in on the lower left corner where I am. I'll add a keyframe and I'll go forward. We'll just zoom in over a long time. And then I'll add another keyframe. Well, I could just change this. Let's change this to 2. There, we've zoomed in. We did it in the middle of the clip though, which we didn't really want to. Now, one thing that you can't do in Premiere easily is edit the anchor point. after the fact. You'd have to be on like here, and you'd have to like try to move the anchor point of the clip and then go ahead and see, is that good? No, you'd have to go back. In this, you can go forward to after the zoom has happened, and then you can just change the anchor point. So I can just like align it to where I want it to zoom in. And then when I go back, look at that. It'll zoom in right there. I love that. You have a little option here for transform. So you get this box on any clip that you currently have selected, and you can just do that all in here. You can hit this to rotate, you can hit this to scale it all around, you can move it, you can transform it, like free transform essentially. That's great. And it also all keyframes. If you have keyframes, it'll keyframe, you know, because it changes the position. So that's very, very useful. You have that for crop as well. You have that for, I don't know what dynamic zoom is. I haven't tried it. It seems scary. Now, if you want this to not just be a robotic, like,
Well, do it. Take your
kind of boring, dumb looking zoom, you gotta click this little button, dude. Look at that, bud. You just gotta click it. There you go. So now you get your your curves editor, right? And similarly to Premiere, if I go into Premiere, you saw that I was messing about here, right? This is the same thing. This is the curves. You have the easy gradient here. You have a linear gradient here, which just means it just goes and just stops. It's not smooth at all. So if you want to do that here, you'd have to select your keyframes, and then you can set them to maybe smooth, ease in, ease out, Bezier. You have these options. And once you've clicked one of those, it's basically unlocked this little handle, right? So you click your keyframe that you want to edit, and then you have this handle that you can just edit this curve with. So if I want this to like zoom in quickly and then slow down, I can drag this out so that we go zooming quickly and then slow. Now I play it back.
Okay. Well,
Much nicer. Unfortunately, you don't get any motion blur, and I don't know if there's a way to do that. Maybe you have to pay for the full version. Because this is all free, let me remind you. Free! Free! You don't get everything. So there are a couple of options. I don't know which ones exactly. Maybe this one? Camera shake? Camera shake? Nope, camera shake seems to be working. Wow, I didn't even know that. You have to buy an additional... I've bought Red Giant for the camera shake. That's another $100 saved right there. You just get the shaking. Wow. Anyway, let's try JPEG damage. Nope, that just works in the free version. How about pencil sketch? Ah, you have reached a limitation with DaVinci Resolve. So this is what you'd get. If you tried to add something that isn't in the free version, you'd get this one, and then you can say, no, I don't want to do it. And then it just says DaVinci Resolve Studio on top of your clip until you decide to pay. And you have your effects panel out here instead. So this is where you get all of the effects. Motion blur. Wow. Look at that. That's pretty interesting. So this has a lot more functionality. I didn't even knew that. Knew that? I can't even talk anymore because I'm so flabbergasted. You have all these effects that you can mess about with to your heart's content. You can even favorite them down here with the little button. And while you can't save the normal transformation effects as your own presets, I've done some stuff for audio that I like. So if I wanted to drag this onto my voice track here, I have a Robin mic. This is just a little thing that I like to put on my mic track to make it sound better for the videos. And this is just, you can just save these. You can just make your own little preset and just update the one you have or save a new one. So all of that still works for filters and stuff. It's just not on the transformation and like the default stuff. You can go into cropping here and you can like, well, I'm on the wrong clip, but you can go into cropping regardless and crop it. Similarly, you can just select it here, crop, and then you can do it manually like this, which I love. I just like that you can do everything visually here. You don't have to fiddle about in these. And I also love that it just has a flip functionality here. In Premiere, you have to like add a flip effect. You have to go in here and you have to type in flip. And you have to drag this on. Go look at that. And if I want to like remove the effects from this, I don't want any effects. Maybe I have some effects on this and I want it to stop affecting. I can just hit 1 on my keyboard and say, what do you want to do? I just want to remove everything, bud. Oh, okay. There you go. Because I've set that as my keyboard shortcut, right? For removing effects in the customization options. Number 1, remove attributes. Similarly, if I want to copy like the voice stuff that I did to this one, I can just copy like normal on my keyboard, Control C, go over here, select this one, and hit number 2 on my keyboard. What do you want to paste, bud? Oh, you know, just a little bit of everything. Yup. And now this has the exact same effects that this clip has. So it's really, really great. And I love how visual it is. You get all the keyframes here, you get all the smooth drag and droppy around. It's a little confusing if you hit delete on something in your timeline, because it's gonna try to like squish things together. It's like, no, I just want to remove that. I want there to be nothing there. No, why is it doing that? Nah, it's all right, just backspace instead. It does that. So it's a couple of buttons that you have to get used to. But if you want to lower the volume, for example, on this clip here, if you drag it, look at that, you get visual feedback on the thingy. You don't have to like guess and hope that it's all right. You have your faders here outside, like I had in Premiere, right? You have your main for everything, or you have the individual track ones. But you can also just drag this one. Wow, instant feedback, so good. And this Premiere doesn't have either. You can click on the end of a clip, right? You have these little handles at the top, drag them. It's a fade. What? Now this is something Vegas does as well. Premiere does not. Now if you want to edit the fade, maybe you want it to go louder and then suddenly quiet, or suddenly get quieter, or somewhere in between. You can just do that with this nifty little handle. And this even works for video tracks. Look. Fade the video track. You don't get that little nifty handle, but you can fade them. Wow, look. Oh, DaVinci Resolve Studios. I've rambled on for long enough. There's just a lot of good stuff with this program. And if you want to import new clips, you can just do that directly here in your media pool. You can just drag and drop something else. Maybe I want this picture in here. Bam. Now I have a picture. I can just drag and drop that on top. Just slap that wherever. Maybe I want it to be longer. Just put that here. Really nifty. Maybe I want it to replace those clips, just drag it on top. Nope. This is a very easy workflow to get into. Now you also have Fusion, which sticky note, resize, then you have, point is you can do it. You've edited your video, you don't want to click on these scary buttons. Fairlight, what, there's audio? Now Deliver is much the same as in Premiere. You have your preset profiles here that comes with the program. I tried these out for a little bit. The YouTube 1080p preset is totally fine. Like it does its job. I like having a little bit more say over what's happening. So I did another modified H.264, which I then up here saved off as my new preset. So it's over here now, YouTube 60, which is much the same. It's a 1080p, 60 FPS. I set this to 25 instead of 20, but it seems to be working fairly well. And when you're done, you can just select a location, you can select a file name, add to queue. What? There's a queue? That's right. You have this render queue right here. So you don't have to open another program or wait for other things to happen. You can just add things here and then start render, and it'll just work its way through the queue. If you want to edit a project, you want to change something about it, you can do that and then update it or add as a new job. So you get 2 of them. If you want to like test various settings, you can add a bunch of copies. Then you can go into this one and say, maybe I want to try the YouTube preset. Let's update the job. Now this will use the YouTube preset. You can go back into this. Maybe I'll use this one as automatic best quality. Let's see what happens then. I recommend you don't, because that made it into a 50 megabit per second video, which is huge. But anyway, what does this button do? Nothing. Good grief. Man, that was a lot of stuff that just happened there in that video. I was trying to get through that before it got boring. Hopefully it didn't. If you want to edit a video and you don't want to pay money for Premiere, alternatively, you just you're just sick of Premiere, I highly recommend DaVinci Resolve. They're on version 16 as of recording this video, and this version, everything I've shown you in here is completely free. There seems to be no limit to how big of a video or how long of a video. I've exported, 4-hour long streams with this. It's completely fine. It's very, very good. So anything you want to do outside of very, very specific fancy things, you can do in this. Editing, even effects, even like all this like stabilization, there's all the mixer stuff. You can get this one up and down, you can get the metadata up and down, the inspector. There's a lot of customizability. You can get this one out if you want to view the source again for some reason. There's this little button. Check this out. If you have this point in the source, right, you're like, where am I in this clip? You can just click this. It'll match the frame. It'll find the frame, exact frame in your timeline that you have in your source. What? Similarly, oppositely, you can just click this one and it'll find the clip with the frame in the... Wow, I like this program. It's a nice program. And I'm just flabbergasted that it's free. So go forth and edit a video or two. Oh, you have a volume slider.